Vibha.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Good to see you. Okay, the sound is very clear. Can you hear me and see me both?
Now I can see you and I could hear you also.
Okay, brilliant. All right, guys. Uh, gonna quickly welcome everyone. House of Experts, episode 26. My name is Vibha Kagzi, and I'm very excited to have with us a very special guest from Bangalore, Rohit Varma, who is the co-founder of Nature in Focus. Rohit has had a corporate career for 16 years and then decided to sort of hang his boots and start a company along a theme that he's totally passionate about. It's given birth to what he calls Nature in Focus. Please do follow Nature in Focus on Instagram and follow Rohit as well. The portal has beautiful images taken not only by him and his team, but also from other wildlife enthusiasts around the world. They also organize Asia's largest wildlife festival annually. Stay tuned to their Instagram page to get more information on the next festival. They also organize one of the largest awards for photography, getting over 15,000 entries every year. I've seen some of those pictures and they're absolutely brilliant. Rohit also shared some of his work with us. Of course, he has his work has been widely acclaimed worldwide. To of course see some of his work, do follow him. Rohit, amazing journey, amazing to have you on board, and super excited to share your journey with everyone. So thank you for accepting the invitation to come on board.
So thank you for inviting me.
All right, let's jump right into it, Rohit. So a little bit about your past. I run, as you know, an education and careers advisory. So I always like to go back into the childhood and talk about your early years. What were they like? Early education. If you could just walk us through a little bit of that.
Sure. So I belong to this place called Balaghat in Madhya Pradesh, and it's a very small town. And I grew up in that place, studied there. At that point of time, yes, my childhood summer vacations used to be mostly in the wilderness because wilderness is all around Balaghat. One of the most famous national parks, Kanha, which is like 100 kilometers away from my place. So I did my BCom, I did my law, and I was kind of lost. Didn't know what to do with my life or what with my career. And 97, I landed up in Bangalore, and that's when I started exploring what I should be doing it. And initial 1 year or so, I did sales. And from there, I figured out that I want to be in marketing. So I took up evening classes and I did my PG in marketing management. And I was
Wow. Okay.
fortunate that I was fortunate that I could shift from sales to marketing because one of my clients offered me a marketing job. And that
Okay.
particular client or that particular organization became like an institute to me because I learned marketing in that organization from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that has been my journey. So after that, I joined AMD, which is a chip manufacturing organization. I spent almost 5 years handling the channel consumer retail brand for them for India and Southeast Asia. And then I joined SanDisk. That's where I was heading marketing, and that was my last corporate assignment.
Wow. Okay. So you went from chips, semiconductors, SanDisk, etc., to uh, you made a complete career switch. So how did that happen? So what was that sort of turning point for you when you said, okay, I'm done?
So what happened was not that I didn't enjoy the corporate life, I did, but after some time it just became boring. I said, okay, this is not what I really want to do with my life. There has to be something beyond that. There has to be some purpose behind your life. And I quit a job. I didn't do anything for almost 6 months. I was just traveling. And I remember in 2010, if I'm not wrong, I went to Bandipur without having any plan, and I went to the jungle. And that's when I saw the majestic animal tiger. In the
That was
marketing
your first
language, I
time?
saw the.
That was your
No,
first time seeing the
actually,
tiger?
as a kid, I have seen in Kana, but there was a long gap, almost like
Mm.
20 years of gap, and I was not in the forest. So, in the marketing language, we always talk about the hero product. So the wildlife showed me the hero product is okay. This is a tiger. Okay. And the life got changed because he was just walking on the right side of my vehicle. And I could just get one of the images because I just had a very basic camera at that point of time and a very basic lens. But that's where the connection kind of like rebuild with the wildlife. And I wanted to look at it, what can I do with the wildlife? So like any other wildlife photographer, you will start chasing the big cats. You want to make sure that you are able to get some good images of the big cats. And you forget that the wildlife is way beyond the big cats.
Right.
So that's where I got connected with my current other co-founder and got to learn a lot from him, which is Kalyan.
That's Kalyan.
And
Okay, yeah.
yes, that's Kalyan. And then the whole perspective got changed that what kind of photography you want to do it, because wildlife is way beyond just a big cats, as I said earlier. So you start looking at wildlife in like complete sense. So every subject, every animal, everything, even the trees, the plants, everything becomes important, and you start looking at how do you make your images more interesting. So it's not about just getting a portraits. Then you start thinking that what is going to be your style of photography.
Hmm. Okay.
So that's how the journey started.
So you reconnected with nature, you went back, you took the 6 month sabbatical, you felt sort of this lack of purpose in your life, and you said, okay,
Yes.
you got your eyes on that tiger, and you said, this is it.
Yes.
Then what happened? So how do you go from this spurge of passion to the next step?
Okay, so I would say that initially it was just a hobby that whenever you get a chance, you go to the jungle. Being in Bangalore, I had an opportunity, like in 5 hours time, I can be either in Bandipur, Kabini, BR Hills, Nagarhole, any of the places. So I used to go there pretty often. And initially, like anybody else, you will look at it, post your images on social media, and you enjoy looking at number of people who are liking your images or commenting on your images. But that's not what the purpose of the wildlife photography should be. It has to be way beyond that. So me and Kalyan, once we were discussing, I think we were in Bombay at that point of time. No, actually it was in Borneo. We were having a chat, and he said that there is nothing uh, for the wildlife community which happens in India.
Hmm.
We should be looking at doing something in India. I said, yeah, sounds good. So it was just like a talk and then went off. And then 2013, once again, we spoke about it. Then I asked him, are you really serious? Shall we create something? He said, yeah, we should, because nothing happens for the wildlife community in India. And 2014 March was the first festival of nature in focus happened in Bangalore.
Wow.
We had
Okay.
like, yeah, we had like 2 months of preparation time, maybe less than that, because he was traveling, he was shooting somewhere, I was somewhere else. But we decided that we will make it happen. And the first festival happened. We didn't know how people are going to perceive, what kind of response are we going to get it. Uh, but just on the day of the event, there is an article which came in Deccan Herald that this is a
Oh,
festival which is happening, and people traveled all the way to Electronic City to attend the festival. In
wow.
Bangalore terms, you are like driving 1.5 hours
Hours
to reach
away,
to the
yeah.
destination of the festival. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So it started with you wanting to do something for the community.
Yes.
It was an immediate urge to say, okay, let's bring this community together. It was a community driven effort.
I would say that, see, I believe very strongly, Vibha, that community always exists. It's just
Hmm.
about that. Can you do something for them and bring them on a platform? Okay. So there was a community. There are tons of social media groups. You will find it. But if you want to do an effort in which you are able to get them and provide them a platform, then obviously they will be more interested in having a conversation with you. That's what we did. We just created a festival. Initially, the focus was obviously on the photography, and then the festival got evolved. Why I'm saying it got evolved? Because it is no more about a photography. It is about wildlife as holistic as it can get. So talk about research, conservation, science, filming,
Wow.
photography, everything happens in the festival.
And is it a day long festival, a weekend? How
It's
long is it?
2.5 days.
2.5 days. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So we
And it's
start on
just,
Friday
yeah.
and we close on Sunday evening.
Okay. All right. When was the last festival held?
Last year. Unfortunately, COVID didn't allow us to do the festival this year. Otherwise, it was scheduled to happen in the month of August.
Okay, great. So that the festival is where you got started. The
Yeah.
festival has continued since 2014. What happened
Yes.
next? How did you evolve to, how do you come up with the next concept for your community?
Yes. So the next concept came in 2015 when we introduced the photography awards. And what we did was we did a bit differently. We said we should have multiple categories. So it can't be just one category and all the people are submitting the images for that category. So we had five different categories, and we created a category for the young photographers also. So that means
Okay.
overall six categories. So that's what happened in 2015. 2016, and we launched our portal, uh, which we call as an ardent voice for the natural world storytellers. So if you have a great story and you want to narrate it, this is your platform. Submit it. We will work with you to improvise, edit it, clean it up, have the best possible images, and your story goes live. So portal, I think, has got more than few hundred stories published there right now. So portal
When you
happened in
say
2000.
story, it's
It's all
other
wildlife.
aspiring photographers taking wildlife pictures or videos, or what format is it?
It's both the formats, and it is not only for the photographers. If you are a researcher, you have done a research and you want to write about your research, this is your place. If you have done a conservation effort, there is a work which has been done, then you can actually talk about the project, what you have run it, and that gets published. It even talks about the issues, what we are facing it right now. So it's a mix of the content which gets on an IF platform. So anything with regard to nature and wildlife, that's a content you will find it there.
I see. Okay. All right. So you now
And
have the, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
sorry, just one point. Till this time, we were very focused on India. So all the
Mhm.
content with regard to Indian wildlife, that is what we were publishing it. But slowly, we are opening up now.
Okay, okay. Earlier you're confined to India and now you're sort of
Yes,
taking it global. Okay, great.
yes.
Okay.
So that
So,
happened in 2016.
mhm.
Then the whole idea of having a portal was once again with the same objective as we spoke about, is that you can't just have an engagement for 2.5 days with your colleagues, community, friends. It has to be a long-term effort, and that's the reason the portal happened. And then 2017, we were thinking what we should be doing it. Then we launched another part of the portal that's called Hive. Hive is that's where you find the images. So just like
Okay.
any like 500px or a Flickr, you can upload your wildlife images there, and the best of the images get shared on our Instagram profile also. And then we figured out that the filming is something which we should be taking it up. So we did an experiment in 2018 where half a day was dedicated for the films to be showcased. And we were shocked that there was no place to even sit on a Friday afternoon, like 1.5 hours of drive, and people just came just to watch the films. So that gave
Wow.
us a confidence to introduce a film festival. And 19, we had a proper film festival. 2020, we had a proper film festival. And we introduced
Wow.
from last 2 years the film awards also.
Oh,
So that
wow.
has been
Okay.
the journey of Niche in Focus.
And again, the film festival, you invite entries from around the world and people send in
Yes,
their wildlife photograph. Oh, okay. Wow.
films. Yeah,
Films. Okay. So
yeah.
you've got the portal, you've got the first event that you organize, which has culminated into like this big festival that you do every year. You now have Hive, which is for people to submit their photographs. You have the portal,
Yes,
which takes stories. You also have the
yes,
photography awards, you have the film awards, and you have the
yes,
film festival. Okay, wow.
yes.
Wow.
And this year we started doing the film productions also.
Are you now in film production as well?
Yes.
Okay. Film production for whom? Would it be like for companies, for governments? Who would invite you to make a film?
Or it depends. It can be commissioned by international organizations, by the broadcasters, or it is for the government or for the non-profit organizations. It depends. The field is vast open.
Okay, great. Okay, so thanks for giving us a background on the organization and how you sort of build a community. Very, very fascinating. And I love all the ideas that you sort of, really sort of let these ideas flow and emerge, and given various sort of uh, starting points for different people. You said researchers, aspiring photographers, filmmakers. So just trying to incorporate many, many people who are just general wildlife enthusiasts. I want to understand for anyone who likes nature, what can they do? So, what are some of the career options for people who are into nature?
I would say there are a lot of career options which exist today. You can be a researcher, you can be a conservationist, you can be a scientist, you can actually join the forest services. You can look at taking filming as a career if you are interested in doing the filming. And even in the filming, also, there are multiple roles to be played. Somebody has to look at how the scripts are done or the concept notes are done. The filming ideas have to be created. Then you have to learn how to shoot, how to edit the films, how to make it an interesting story. And the films is all about interesting stories. So there are a lot of career options, and because of social media, if you are good at your work, you actually can become a social media influencer also. You know how the whole micro influencer world that's been happening in the last few years. So if you're good at your work, you have a good knowledge, you have a good following, you actually can become a micro influencer. But just doing a wildlife photography, it is very difficult to earn your living. It's not
Okay.
that easy.
It's
So
not
you
that
have to
easy.
look at it. No, no, no. It is just not that easy. But you have to look at on a larger spectrum that how do you leverage your skill set to do other things so that you are able to follow your passion and you are still able to earn your living.
And you guys seem to have cracked that code, right? You guys seem to have created a large enough platform, and now entering film production and is etc. You feel you're able to monetize and sort of take your because you know a lot of people will say this is my passion and this is my work, and clearly what you've done is try to fuse your passion and work. Is this, you know, from a monetary perspective sustainable? Do you find what you're doing sustainable?
It took time. It really took almost
Okay,
6 years to make it sustainable, but it is sustainable today.
it is
Why
sustainable.
it is? Yeah, because all the things what we have created, people have found the value in it.
Hmm.
When you talk about a festival, there is a small fee which people have to pay to attend a festival. So festival is sustainable from those things, and then the sponsors are there who come and put the money because there's a large audience sitting there. The photography awards, there is a small fee which is required to be paid as a registration fee. Then only you can participate it. So we have made it the models in that way that each piece is sustainable on its own.
Okay. Okay. All right. You've created properties such that each property in itself is sustainable in some fashion. Okay.
Yes.
Um, you know, also wanted to understand, you know, from your own perspective, you know, since you run the awards and since you run the film festival, let's first do the films and then we can do the photographs. What makes a good film? You know, if I was going to shoot something and send it to your festival, what's the selection criteria? You know, how does someone even look at a film and say this is a great film?
So there are two parts to it. The third part is about how it has been shot. The first part is about the research. The second part is about the story which you want to narrate it. If you have a powerful story, then it is easy for you to look at it how this is required to be shot. So the research and the storytelling, the combination plays a huge amount of role. And after that is that the kind of footage we are able to get it and then the edit part of it. So it's all about the stories. Find the stories. Find something which people would love to sit and watch. They can spend 1 hour sitting and watching that film what you have created, or even 5 minutes or 3 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever the length of the film is. What is the story which you want to narrate it? Is that compelling enough for a person to sit and give his 10 minutes to you? Find that
But
story.
how am I supposed to find? I mean, I'm going to ultimately rely on nature as my actors and my, you know, nature is going to be my actor, right? So I'm not going to even direct these actors. So unlike conventional cinema, where I have a storyline and then I bring in actors and I say, okay, now stand up and sit down. With nature, how do I have a story and then how do I create a film around that? That just sounds
You're right. So, the biggest challenge in the wildlife film is that if you're looking at doing a proper 52-minute film, you'll end up spending 2, 3 years in making one film. Because, as you said, the
oh,
characters, they do not respond to you. You
ex-
can't tell them to shoot, yeah, sit down, stand up, now go kill something. No, it doesn't happen like that. So you end up spending a lot of time. You need to have a patience. That's the reason the research is important. So you have to understand the behavior of your subject, whichever subject you decide. You need to spend time in doing a research on those subjects. And then once you understand the behavior, you go back, you go to the field, then you start observing the behavior and start getting your footage in. So when it comes to the story part of it, nature has got tons of stories. It's just that we are not looking at it. The problem is this, that we are not looking at the stories which nature gives us. We just go sit there, watch it for 3 days, enjoy the holiday and come back. But everything, what is there has got a story. The finding the story is our job. So if you spend more time, you'll start finding a story. If you talk about a subject like say a chameleon, you can actually make a film on chameleon. The way it changes colors, the way it camouflages itself, the way it walks, the way it hunts. What is the life cycle? You can make an amazing story on it. It can be as simple subject like a macaque. They're amazing subjects actually. As per me, they do so much of stuff that it will give you enough content to build up a story around it. So it is always there. Stories are there. It's all about that, how much effort you're putting to finding those stories.
Wow, this is fascinating. So when you're saying story, you're saying go spend time in nature. And when you're saying research, you're saying try to understand, what does this creature do? And then you come up with a plot basis the research you do. And then later on you film it. So the
Yeah.
filming
So that's
happens
the
sort of
reason.
third phase. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the reason you should talk to the researchers. You should talk to the science information. You need to go
Okay.
and check yourself. You need to read. Today, the information is I would say, is a overflow on search. Okay, so there is tons of information. So you start making the notes, and then slowly start having that. Okay, this is a story which I would like to narrate it. So it is completely different from a Bollywood or a Hollywood film where everything is scripted, every shot is defined, every angle is defined. Wildlife doesn't work in that manner at all. Okay, because nothing is in your control.
Sure.
The light is not in your control. The behavior of the subject is not in control. Nothing is in your control. So it is when you go there, you start shooting and you start building up your script in the field. So you have a kind of like a scratch of the script, but actual script happens when you're in the field.
It sort of just evolves with
It
as
just
the
evolves.
animal is moving. It just evolves. Wow.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. They
And
most definitely need a category for best wildlife photography or best wildlife film at the Oscars because this is sounding far more challenging
it
than
is
conventional
challenging.
filmmaking.
Yeah. And the weather conditions. So last year, June, July timeframe, we were shooting in a place called Agumbe, which gets the highest rainfall in India.
Hmm.
And that place is always wet. Now, in those conditions, if you're looking at shooting, when it is continuously raining all the time, you are wet, your equipment is wet, and your subjects, as you said, the characters, they don't behave the way you want them to behave it. So you need to. We spent like 2 weeks to make a film of 13 minutes. That's called Mysteries of Monsoon. We were wet completely. There is no way you can dry yourself. So there was a place where we could keep the equipments whole night and like a dry room so that equipments are dried up. And you start off in the morning, you will get small windows. When it just clears up, say for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you shoot it. That's how that whole film was done. You should check the film out. It was very difficult shoot. Actually, when
Wow.
I came back to my office, I directly came to office from the field, and my colleagues threw me out because I was smelling so badly.
Wow. Okay.
They
Okay.
said, "Go home,
So
take shower now."
very interesting. So you said the criteria you would look for when you're selecting the films would be the research, the story, and then
Yeah,
the footage, right? The three
yeah,
things.
yeah.
Okay, great. And if we move the lens to photography, how do you look at photography and how do you know what makes a good picture?
Okay. Quite a difficult question. What makes a good picture? As picture has to tell a story. It's a very difficult job to do it. But if your picture has, if that picture can take you, like for example, if you see a picture which I have taken it, and if I am able to take you to that place, I think that's a great picture.
Hmm.
Okay. So you start visualizing the place. Oh wow. And you start seeing the picture as I have seen it.
Hmm.
That means that picture is saying something.
That's beautifully
So
phrased.
thank you.
That's
But
beautiful.
that's
If
how I
you,
see it.
that's beautiful. If you can transport the viewer to that
Yeah,
location, that's a beautiful picture. Wow, I
yeah,
like that.
that's a
I like
beautiful
that.
picture.
Okay, that's a beautiful phrase. I'm going to remember that one. Um, I also, you sent me the picture portfolio and we made that beautiful video with all your pictures. The first picture we used was of the tiger, and you've caught him with his head down, looking up at your lens. We saw that picture and we were staring at it for like half an hour, wondering how in the world did you capture that shot? So I want to understand, as a layman, from a layman's perspective, it seemed like how did he do this? How did you do it? How do you take these pictures? And the rest of the portfolio followed. Every picture you had somehow managed to capture these moments. So how do you capture a moment in wildlife, and how long does it take? What is the whole process? Just if you could just break it down for us.
So as we spoke about the filming, the same rule applies about the research.
Okay.
For the photography also. So you should know the animal behavior. You should know the habitat, uh, where the subject is. These are the two basic things. See, camera lenses, that's a technical part of it. The main part here is the creativity. How do you compose
Okay.
your image? Okay, so I always say that you don't take the image, you make the image. Okay, that's my phrase because you are creating something. That's the reason I always say that you make the image. With regard to the photograph which you spoke about it, I was there in Tadoba and I saw these two, three sub-adult tigers who were in a shade, relaxed, because it was too hot. I think it was some 48 degrees, 50 degrees kind of a temperature, and they were not doing anything. Now, that gave me an opportunity to start composing my image. And I started thinking that how do I make one interesting image from nothing is happening right now, but if something happens, can I make some interesting image? So I saw that tree, I moved my vehicle so that that whole I can get a portion of the tree and then the tiger, if the tiger lifts his head, and he obviously will see because he knew that I'm there. So I just make sure that I was in a right place. I waited. I waited for almost like 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
In that, yeah, it was really, really hot. And even if you take a ice cold water or say take the ice itself, it will melt in 10 minutes, maybe less than that. So it was damn hot. So sitting there, and that moment came when he just moved slightly and lifted his head up, and I took that shot. So sometimes it takes few hours, few days, because there is some image which is there in your head, which you want to make it. There are times when you just get that image. So it just depends. Wildlife is completely, it's nothing goes as per the plan.
Nothing goes
It's
as per
very,
plan. Okay.
yeah, it's very dynamic. You
You
don't know
should
what is
not
going
go
to
back
happen.
to your boss from 16 years ago and tell him this. Your boss will not like this answer.
Yeah, there everything is planning, multiple Excel sheets, multiple decks. But here is very different. Your planning
So
happens in the field.
planning happens on spot. It sounds like
Yeah.
you sort of reached there, you found this moment, you saw the tree, you parked your vehicle in a certain way. So you composed
Yeah.
the picture in your head actually
Yes.
before it happened.
Yes. Yes. You're right.
Okay.
So there is a pre-composition in your head. There are certain images which you want to make it. Like for example, that other image which I shared with you of elephant on the Ramganga. I always
Right.
wanted to make that image, and the whole idea was that I make sure that by 5:30 I was there in that area because the sunset is supposed to happen. If the sunset happens and if the elephant is there, I get my image. So I waited. I waited for 1.5 hours. Then I saw the lone elephant and had a huge, vast Ramganga in the background, and the light was following, was coming on the water, and that's when the water was lit, and then the rest is all black, and then you just see the silhouette of the elephant.
So you've already visualized these images, and in
Yeah.
some way, from either through your passion or you're just willing the animal to do what you want it to do in that moment. It's amazing. It's like it's a
Yeah,
force of
sometimes they
nature,
do it.
and they
Yeah,
do it. Yeah.
I'm just being lucky that I could find the purpose. The wildlife photography is just not about just taking the images, but it gives much, much more than that. It gives you a lot of learnings. You can learn a lot from the wildlife. When you are in the forest, you will start thinking. When we are in the so-called urban areas, our mind is cluttered. And when you cut off, when you don't have a
Hmm.
network, you are there in a very serene place. When I'm saying serene, because of the surrounding, obviously you'll have different insects which are biting on you. A lot can happen there. But I'm saying that your mind is free. It's like when you do your workout or you do your yoga or meditation, what you're trying to do is keep your mind as free as possible. Try to control your
Sure.
thoughts. For me, that happens in wildlife. When I'm there, that's what I feel, and that's what I'm able to achieve it. So that's a connection maybe I have with the wildlife, with the nature, that I feel very comfortable. I feel like I'm at home.
Hmm.
With regard to the images, you have to start thinking. So how it happens is that you see tons of stuff which has been produced by other great wildlife photographers. You start thinking that kind of images what you want to make it. Like for me, I normally don't shoot portraits. For me, it is all about the animal and its habitat. So I like to see the whole habitat and then have the subject in that. That's the kind of images which I like. So that's my style of doing a wildlife photography. So one has to develop their own style.
Okay. Okay. And so you said, you see a lot of photographs by some great photographers, etc. Any other formal training that you have or that you would recommend to someone wanting to step in your shoes? Do you really need formal training to become a photographer?
Uh, a very tricky question. But I'll just say one thing. You can learn the camera, you can learn the different lenses, you can learn the role of aperture, shutter, exposure, blah, 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 blah. But the creativity is something which comes to you by doing it,
Hmm.
and you need to shoot more and more. And what I always say is that you don't need to be going to a national park to shoot images. The nature is around you, nature is everywhere. You can start shooting at home, wherever you are. There is something which you will find it interesting, which you can shoot it. So, not that every time you have to go to a national park or a sanctuary or tiger reserve to make the images. You can shoot anywhere, wherever you want. What you need to do is that are you actually making one interesting image? That should be the thought. So
Hmm.
technical part is not that difficult to learn. The difficult part is that how do you become creative in making your
Hmm.
images? And that comes by shooting, doing your own mistakes, analyzing your own images. You can be the critic for your own images, what you like it or what you don't like it. So there are times when I look at the images which I've taken a few years ago and I say, okay, I could have done this. I could have
Hmm.
shot these images. I could have moved my vehicle. I could have been in different place because the light
Sure.
was coming like this. Subject was here. So do the analysis of your images, which is very, very critical.
Okay. So some level of base level training on how to use equipment, shutters, exposure, all of that. But the rest of it, you're saying just go out there and keep
Go out and shoot.
shooting.
Keep
Go out and
shooting.
shoot.
If you can make some 10 good images in a year, you've done a great job.
That's good. Okay. And a little bit about like raw images versus like photoshopping images. How much of the images do we as, outsiders see? What portion of that image is real and how much of it has been sort of glazed and touched upon? And how do you as a photographer see that balance between authenticity and, makeup, so to speak?
Okay, so the funda is very simple, Vibha. None of the cameras can shoot what we see through our eyes. Okay, it is not possible. Practically, our eye is a best possible lens you can have it. The kind of
Hmm.
colors what we can see it is impossible to get it through the camera. So the reason or the purpose of doing a Photoshop should be that what you have seen, you are reproducing to that level because the image has been shot in raw, but you have a picture in your head what you have seen it in terms of the colors, everything. Okay, so you should Photoshop to a level that you can actually make it as real when you shot that image. That's a line which individual has to draw. Means you can become a digital artist, but
Right.
you are a you're a nature photographer, you're a wildlife photographer. So you should be looking at that balance is right. There is a line which you don't want to cross it just because you want to enhance the image. That makes no sense to me. Okay. So that's the reason that that line need to be decided by the person who is working on the image. Every
Okay.
image is photoshopped. Every image what you see is photoshopped. Photoshop is a tool. Okay. So you can't allow tool to use you. You should be using the tool. And you should be deciding that how much do I really want to use it for.
Okay. So you're saying every image is touched upon. It
Yes.
depends on the photographer how much he wants to sort of enhance it or not. And you don't
Yeah.
see any
As
right or wrong in this. As a photographer, do you guys look at this as some sort of moral code that you are sort of touching upon and saying, hey, you've totally like you've used, CGI or whatever to completely sort of turn your image around? Is there a code of morality amongst photographers?
yes. So when we run our photography awards and we have the shortlisted images, we ask people to share the raw images. So when we see the
Ah,
raw
okay. You
images, we
do.
actually can
Okay.
make it out. Yes, every image which has won any award in Nature in Focus photography awards, we always get the raw images. Every image is checked. We actually know that how much Photoshop work has happened on the image. If it is
Ah,
too
okay.
dramatic, it gets dropped.
I
It
see.
simply gets
Okay.
dropped.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So that's the reason I was
there's
saying is
okay.
that, yeah, that's the reason I was saying is that if you're trying to make it what you have seen it using Photoshop, that's great. You can do a bit of a cropping, you can work on a shadows, you can work on other stuff. That's fine. But that doesn't mean that you will completely change the image. And that image,
Hmm.
any competition, not only about our photography award competitions, but any photography competitions, it will get disqualified. It
Okay,
may
that's
look
very
great on
interesting.
social media, but it will not
Correct.
go through anything else. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, great. I wanted to make sure we address that. Okay. So there does exist some sort of morality or authenticity. Let's not maybe not call it morals, but authenticity of that image that you will look for when giving out that
Yes.
award.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay. Also wanted to touch upon, you said go out and shoot and go to the forest and be out in nature. What are some of your favorite parks? What are some of those places where you keep going back to recurrently because you just can't get enough?
Okay, so as I said, my childhood memories of Ghana, I can never
Right.
forget. I still have those images in my head. Not that I shot any of those images, just there because those experiences are something which I can never forget. Okay, so Kana is one of my favorite parks. I just love being there. Another place is Corbett, specifically this zone called Dikala because it's a beautiful grassland, and that's where the whole river is and the elephants, which are my favorite subject. That is my second park. And 2, 3 years ago, I went to Dudhwa, and it's a Tarai region, which is in UP. And the grass is so good. It's a elephant grass, which is almost like 7, 8 feet, maybe more than that. I just love the terrain. So these are the three places which I really like. When you look at doing some nice images of tigers, I would always advise that look at Ranthambore because that allows you to uh, make some really interesting images. So these are some of the places which I really like. But there is something which
So
I
so
do a
so what
lot
about
river.
Ranthambore? Like why Ranthambore? What like as a layman, what makes a forest more sort of easy to access from a photography perspective? How is it conducive to photography? Like what should
Yeah.
one look for?
Ranthambore, the biggest advantage is that it's not a dense forest. Okay,
I see.
just
Okay.
like if you talk about Kanha, it's a
Hmm.
shrub forest. So because
I
of
see.
that, the visibility or you may be able to find the tiger is much higher compared to other parks because it's of the kind of nature of the forest what it is, and
I
plus
see.
it's got amazing lakes. So if you want a tiger to walk on a bank of a lake and then you have a beautiful habitat shot, it's a wide angle shot. Those are the shots what you can make in this kind of a
I
place.
see. Okay.
With regard to Dikala has got a grassland, so once again it becomes a very interesting place and has got the hills around it. Some of the images which I've shared with you are from Dikala. So because of that, it becomes a very interesting place. In a place like Dodua, I said that the elephant grass, and when you see an elephant walking in that grass, it looks very small because of the grass. Now it becomes very interesting that how you make some images in that kind of an area. How do you show it? So I shot one image, which is a vertical composition, which I did just to show that elephant is just looking this small, and the grass is almost the same level, and you have a vertical composition of that. So
Hmm.
that is once again interesting. So, very frankly, every place is good. It's just about some places you have a more liking. Uh, but yeah, every forest is great. I shoot a lot even outside national parks.
You shoot outside national parks as well. Okay.
Yeah, that's much pleasure, much at peace. Yeah, another place which I forgot to mention is you should look at exploring Rajasthan, sorry, Gujarat, not Rajasthan, which is the Little Run of Kutch and the Great Run of Kutch and the Velabadar. This is once again amazing salt plains, great migratory bird population, which is the season starts off in January and it continues for a few months. Amazing place, just amazing, simply amazing.
Because I was also on your website, and on Nature in Focus, you have a section called I think it's called Trips, which
Yeah,
had like different locations.
yeah.
So what was that? What was the thought behind having that section and featuring these different locations across the country? And it's very beautifully laid out and it's beautifully detailed. So what was the
So
thought
those are
behind that?
called travel guides. So those
Travel
travel
guides.
guides are there, and we have covered detailed information of all those parks. And these are written by the photographers who have been to those parks a number of times. So it has been written from a perspective of you being a photographer. So when is the best time? So the idea is to tell people when is the best time to go there, what you can find it, where you can stay, what is going to be a cost if you stay for a number of days. So it's like a proper guide to visit
Sure.
any of those parks. So it gives you all the information what you're looking for. So that was the purpose that if you are a wildlife enthusiast, you're a nature enthusiast, and you're looking at traveling, this is one place where you can find information about the parks,
I see.
sanctuaries of India.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So you're really trying to make Nature in Focus like a one-stop shop for enthusiasts. You can find lots and lots of information and imagery and help and resources, etc.
Yes, yes, yes. That's the whole objective, that anything with
Hmm.
regard to nature, you should be able to find through our portal. Very open. If you have a great story, please submit. We will work with you. We'll make sure that that story goes live. Obviously, story has to have a meat. So there is basic edit requirements which need to be taken care of it. So that's the whole idea of the whole
Okay.
portal.
Okay, and you just touched upon birds when you were talking about Gujarat and the Little Run of Kutch, etc. Is there any difference when you're shooting, a large cat like a tiger, and versus when you're shooting birds, sort of smaller, petite, higher up, as opposed to at ground level? So how does photography change when the subject changes?
Okay, so doing a bird photography is
Yeah.
more difficult, I would say, because you need to see that they are comfortable with you. So
Hmm.
normally when you're shooting tigers, elephant, leopards, and all those things, you are in the vehicle. Okay, with regard to the birds, and if you're looking at doing some interesting images, either in LRK or say Bharatpur and all those places, you need to make the subject comfortable with you, which means that they need to go back to their activity as they were doing it. So your presence shouldn't be bothering them, which means that you spend a lot of time sitting there and doing nothing, so that they feel that okay, you are part of the whole habitat, and that allows you to make the images. So it's very critical that no movements, very less movements, being there for a longer period of time, it will help you in getting the images which you want to make it. And sometimes the birds also get excited. I remember I was one winter evening, I just drove down to a place called Nandi Hills, outskirts of Bangalore,
Yeah.
and I was looking at shooting this Tickle's blue flycatcher, and that bird for some reason was getting excited with the sound of the shutter. So every time I press the shutter, she will come closer to me. So she was not
Wow.
sure what is the sound, and she will come close. It was very interesting. Initially, I was trying to see that how I can make the image. I've shared one of the images with you. So
Sure.
it was very interesting. So it's all about at how comfortable you can make them. And once they are comfortable, you will be able to make the images what you want to make it.
Okay, so it is a little bit different, and you
It
sort of
is.
more integrate into their space. Uh,
Yes.
okay, okay. obviously you've been to so many locations and forests, and it's been, so many years of you doing this. Will you share? So I don't want to call it your most memorable, but like one of those moments where it still, it still leaves that when you talk about it, you're so excited, or like one moment that, that you always cherish.
This is long time ago. This is, I think, in 2011. I was in Bandipur and I saw a tusker coming, and this was outside the national park because in national parks you're not allowed to get down. So this was outside the national park, and I said, okay, this is beautiful. The habitat is looking awesome. I should get down and take the image.
Oh, wow.
And the guy didn't stop, and he was straight coming towards me. And I had actually, there was no way for me to reverse the vehicle. There was no space. So I got really worried because I took some shots, and then I said, shit, this guy is just not stopping. He's coming straight, and he's a tusker, lone tusker, dangerous. If he comes towards me, I'm dead. There is no way I'll be able to save myself. But very fortunately, um, for whatever reasons, they are, they know where the danger is. They know how the other subject is behaving, and when they feel that it is not a threat to them, they do not come and trouble you. It has always been a defense. So whenever you talk about the wildlife space, and if you
Right.
see that, you hear the story that tiger has killed so many people or leopard has killed, largely it has happened because of the defense. Okay, you trouble them, they will respond back. They have to survive. Now this guy came till the vehicle, and he turned on his own. I was there, I was sitting in the vehicle. He didn't even bother, didn't even touch it. I still have those memories. I had goosebumps. I had no idea what was going to happen, but very fortunate
Nothing.
that nothing happened.
Okay. So you're saying they'll only react from a position of defense. Otherwise,
Yes.
by and large, you haven't seen animals to be sort of hostile or violent or anything.
See, you shouldn't go and trouble them. If you go too close to them, they obviously will be disturbed. If they are disturbed, they will respond. You have to become part of their habitat. So you
Hmm.
need to be more patient. The wildlife photography or filming, any of these things, is all about the patience. The very critical part is that how patient you are. And then any subject, either as an elephant, tiger, whoever it is, or whatever it is, once they are comfortable you being around, they will be more bothered about things which they want to do it. They won't be bothered about you.
I see. So
So
okay,
be
so
patient.
it's a reverse camouflage. You want to
Yeah.
camouflage yourself in their surroundings,
Yes.
and then they will just behave like they do. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I also wanted to touch a little bit about wildlife conservation. What is going on in this space today? What advice do you have for just like regular people who are like people living in urban centers like us who feel a sort of disconnect between wildlife and our cities? We go explore the forest on a 2-day weekend to Tadoba, and then you're back to your urban life. How do you keep that connect, for urban dwellers, and your recommendations on that?
Okay, so as you said, I strongly believe that there is a mega disconnect, and we are actually sitting on like it's a time bomb. Okay, uh, because we have exploited nature to a level of destruction. So talk about deforestation, talk about fossil fuels, talk about water conditions. We are going on a path of destructing every possible thing for the human greed, to be precise. Okay. So I believe that rather than just talking about the conservation work which is required to be done in the forested areas, I think the more conservation work is required to be done in the urban areas, because
Hmm.
we as people are completely disconnected. We are living a life of something which we do not know. Okay, because our life is all about it: go do work, make money, party, buy stuff, buy more stuff, buy some more stuff, and build more pressure on earth.
Sure.
What's this looking at? What do you really need it? How much do you really need it? It is very much important to become more cautious and conscious, and that can start from home. For that you don't have to go and do anything. It's all about us as an individual, that we, if we know what our needs are, how much do we really need it, then things are going to be much, much better. We won't be abusing nature. The point is that we all need to eat, but as human beings, we end up wasting a lot of stuff. If we need 10 clothes, we end up buying 100. If we need to have one meal, we will end up having 6 meals, and we will
So,
waste the food. Okay.
so you're
So
saying
my whole
it
thing is
starts
that
at home. You're saying conservation starts
start
at
from home.
home,
Yes,
consume less.
everybody.
Okay. Hmm.
I'm not saying that don't consume. I'm saying that consume what you need it.
Sure. Okay.
Don't waste it. Anything is to do with the fuel, to do with the water, to do with the food, to do with the stuff what we buy. Buy what you need it. But it's
Sure.
just that we have gone into this whole a very different kind of mindset, wherein Amazon will be showing us 30% off, and we'll end up
Sure.
buying without even realizing that we need this or not.
Absolutely. Okay. So reduce sort of this whole consumerism mindset.
Yeah.
What about like in terms of like wildlife conservation and nature conservation? What is going on in that space? Do you think enough is being done? And what do you think needs to be done?
So there are so many organizations which have been doing a great work for a very, very long time. I'm very fortunate to know one of the organization, which is Nature Conservation Foundation, NCF. They have been doing some amazing work in multiple areas and multiple different fields. They have both, which is a research part of it and the conservation part of it. There's a place called Valparai, which used to be a rainforest once upon a time. And when the Britishers came, they made that whole place as a tea state. Okay. And these guys have been restoring the rainforest from last 2 decades. Amazing work. So there are a lot of other organizations talk about WTI, WCT, Vivek Menon, and they have been working on Elephant Corridor project, which is very much
Hmm.
important. That's a bigger issue which is happening in the northeast today, where the corridors are getting broken and elephants are not able to move it because there is a construction. So elephant, they follow a journey, they follow a path. So this year they could follow it, and next year they see that something has been built there. They don't know where to go.
I see. Okay.
So there is
Ah,
a
because they're
great
used
amount
to
of
us.
work which has been
They
happening.
walk in a
Yes.
certain direction to a certain point. I see.
Matriarchs,
Hmm.
they pass on this information from
I
generations
see.
put together. Okay.
Correct.
So there is a lot of work which is happening. There is concentrated effort by the different conservation organizations who have been trying to see that how can we make sure that the wildlife is not disturbed. There is a much bigger issue which is happening is about the deforestation. Like when you talk about Tadoba, the
Hmm.
other issue is that the forest is smaller, has got more tigers, and there is no corridor that tigers actually can move. So deforestation is one mega issue that has to be looked after. We need more forest cover. Everywhere, every state needs more forest cover. So
Hmm.
I would say that there is a lot of work happening, and if our government also is aligned to it, obviously we can have a much better India than what we have seen in recent past.
Hmm. Okay, great. So there is some work happening, and hopefully, governments, wildlife enthusiasts like yourself, as well as regular civilians, will sort of join the movement, and hopefully, we will have a cleaner and greener planet in the years to come. Rohit,
Yeah.
going to end on that note. Thank you so much. The conversation for me has been an eye opener in many ways. I've learned many, many things from you. As someone who just, I go every year to the forests. I love being in wildlife and nature, but I never had the lens that you have. So thank you for sharing your lens with me, and very successful because you've been able to transport me from my home to your world. So this conversation has been really an eye opener. I love the authenticity. I love the openness with which you shared. Really appreciate it, and I look forward to connecting with you soon. And do keep sharing your photographs and videos. We'd love to share them through Reach IV. We're going to be a constant supporter. So anything you're doing, we're going to put out stories on your work as well. Absolutely brilliant, and so happy to meet someone who's taken his passion and made it into a platform for others to also be able to partake in. I think that's really the hallmark of, instead of sort of going off on your own, you built a community and you're bringing more people along. I think that's really also commendable. Great work, Rohit.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. As one last thing which I will say is that we as people can make a huge difference. It's all about our will, our own way of doing things, and we can surely make a huge, huge amount of difference. Thank you for hosting me. It was lovely having a chat with you, Vibha.
Thank you so much. Take care, Rohit.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Okay, guys, with that, we come to the end of episode 26 on House of Experts. Stay tuned. I have an exciting guest coming up next week for you. We'll be sharing more information very soon. Have a good Sunday. Take care, guys.